Dan Gunther.
I'm going to try to have my back to the fewest people I can. I'm Dan Gunther. I'm a farmer, and I've been working on regional food security. And with both of those things in mind, and I want to say I really respect farmers who are so strapped that they're even considering fracking. I do feel that if you have a marginal farm, that fracking is not the answer for you, and I would really encourage you to look at farms in Pennsylvania that have been fracked, and I think they're finished. And here we have the number one economy in our state is agriculture, and number two is tourism, and I think both are at great risk. The average farm size in New York State is less than 200 acres. So how many 5 to 10 acre well sites, how many compressor stations, how many roads going across the farm and the compaction of those huge trucks that Ann mentioned before a farm is no longer viable, if it was to begin with. And I also would like to add a couple of more details about our frack vacation. We spent 2 weeks, as Ann said, in Pennsylvania talking to anyone who'd listen, and the DEP was sort of the last. I'll save that to the end, but the public works workers said they were unable to keep up with the road damage that was being done by the trucks, as Ann mentioned. We ended up in an inn that took us an hour and a half to find because all of the inn space was taken. It sounds like sort of a Christmas tale, doesn't it? And the innkeeper, whom you would expect to be terribly happy, said that she didn't need the money that bad. She missed the families that used to come there, and she was tired of running a dormitory for boys from Wyoming, Texas, and Colorado. The welder that we spoke to there, when we mentioned that we thought that maybe fracking would give us energy autonomy from other countries, laughed at us and said, you know where the pipe that I'm welding is going? It's going to Perth Amboy, and this will be sold to the highest bidder. But last but not least, and a high point for us, was to sit down with the DEP regulator for our region. He didn't know we were from New York State when he let us in his office, and it was very telling that his parents had leased to the gas company and were very unhappy. Gas wells were being increased exponentially. He could not keep up with regulators. It sounds like that's a theme that's here. And basically, he was very unhappy with the way the whole thing was going down there. And hopefully, we did not find many happy people in Pennsylvania. We don't need to bring that unhappiness here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joan Walker. Joan Walker.
Hi, I'm Joan Walker. I was an high school English teacher. I taught Shakespeare. And I think that this is the real tragic literature of our time, because it's about life and death, and comparable to, and in proportion to Shakespeare's tragedies. For example, the tragedy of the fish that are going to be dead in the Roundout Creek because of Part 781 in here, which allows this toxic produced frac fluid with biocides in it to be in a Kingston Municipal Sewage Plant where I live. And of course, the inevitable tragedies of all the things, to living things, of all the spills that are inevitable, the blowouts to the drinking water, because there are only 15 of you in mineral and mining to monitor tens of thousands of wells in New York. It's so absurd. You can imagine Shakespeare throwing some comedy in there. The real tragedy is that we are the sovereign people of America. And we are programmed to stand here begging an agency that does not represent us because the regulatory system is a buffer between us and the corporation, and today between us and our legitimate elected officials. The DEC is just doing its job. They really are. Their mandate, and I quote, is to provide for the development of oil and gas. This is not my husband's DEC who's a contractor and says, try and put a stream, a driveway over a stream, and the DEC will be right there just because it's a trout stream. We're talking mineral and mining. We're talking a greater ultimate recovery of the resources. And that is the highest goal. So the DEC are just characters that move the plot along. We the people who are both programmed right now, hypnotized even. Anybody with common sense knows it's insane to put poison on the ground in a groundwater ecosystem. To claim our sovereign power to prevent an activity which is clearly criminal, ecocidal, homicidal, we need to demand that our lawmakers, not the plot movers, make fracking illegal, make it a crime.
Thank you, ma'am. Alexander Lyons.
Hello, Alex Lyons, Ulster County, New York. You cannot safely regulate a flawed process. The corruption and conflict of interest caused by the Halliburton loophole made this technology possible. Because of exemptions from environmental protections, hazardous substances can be put dangerously close to aquifers and wafted from waste pits, condensate tanks, and compressors. People around the country say their water was fine before fracking took place. People living near frac sites from state to state find the same contaminants polluting their wells and air. No regulation can prevent flaws in cement that release chemicals into an aquifer. If a landowner signs a non-disclosure agreement which exempts the drilling companies from any responsibility for contaminating their water, some companies will provide replacement water. It is essential to research the first-hand experiences of people whose water and air have been poisoned. If the DEC mistakenly allows fracking, they should mandate that a tracer be put in fracking fluid to easily show when contamination is present. Unsafe levels of trihalomethanes and acrylonitrile were found in drinking water supplies in Pennsylvania from putting frack fluid through sewage treatment plants into rivers. Is New York going to allow untreated fracking chemicals into public water supplies? Currently, there are no water quality tests in New York for some of the fracking chemicals. All radioactive cuttings from drilling, as they vary in radioactive concentration, should be monitored by an unbiased, independent source. Tests should study for alpha, beta, and gamma. The main threat in Marcellus cuttings is radium, an alpha particle emitter. The DEC has only tested cuttings for gamma. Another danger may be the frac fluid in gas wells and injection wells coming back up. The cement and steel in gas wells lasts around 100 years or less. Sometime over the next million years, volatile organic compounds may evaporate into aquifers, and heat and pressure may push frac fluid back up into aquifers, according to Paul Rubin, a hydrologist. At least 50 million gallons of frac flowback went unaccounted for in 2010, and the industry has committed thousands of regulatory violations, according to Pennsylvania state records. How can we regulate an accident-prone and toxic industry that doesn't follow the rules? We can create jobs if we grow food, energy audit homes, and invest in clean, renewable energy. If you care about people, the earth, and future generations, do not frack.
Judith Muller.
My name is Truth Muller, and I live in Rock Hill. And so recently I wrote a report for school about the water cycle. And everyone knows what the water cycle is, how it works. water vapor in the air condenses in the clouds, then it comes down and rains snow. Then it goes through the earth, it's filtered, the earth is like a big giant filter, and it ends up in underground reservoirs. Then it eventually comes up into the lakes and rivers which we get our drinking water from. If people are going to be pumping chemicals into the ground, when it rains, it doesn't seem possible that these chemicals are not going to seep along with the water into these underground reservoirs and then come back up in our drinking water. It's not good science. Thank you.
Cheryl Karachi.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Karachi. I live in Delaware County, New York. I work representing the Department of Health on a federal study. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, an environmentalist, and a lover of our land and country. When the natural gas industry was first introduced in our area, I was initially against it. I was under the naive misconception, like so many people here still are, that gas would be detrimental to our ecology. However, after doing major research and extensively educating myself with facts instead of the hysterical, undocumented fiction that's circulating out there, I now know that gas drilling will be a positive industry, bringing a much-needed boost to our anemic economy. And thanks to the pending comprehensive DEC guidelines, our water will remain protected. I thank you for taking the time and consideration to be thorough. I hear so many against drilling that have been fed lies pertaining to contaminations as well as job growth. Here is the truth. Gas will be clean, environmentally safe, and bringing countless jobs for a very long time in energy, construction of roads and homes, water treatment, retail, and beyond. Once natural gas is abundant here, all petroleum-based industries will start converting to gas, creating even more jobs in this country. And natural gas is cleaner, saving our environment and additional pollution. For those complaining about the environment and the impact of gas drilling, I hope you all rode your bikes here today, because what's coming out of your car's exhaust is highly toxic and polluting. Stop regurgitating your scare tactics and fear-mongering with unfounded accusations again and again and again. Stop using fracking as a scapegoat for all environmental problems. Don't believe everything you read or hear without personally checking the facts. Bradford County is enjoying a booming economy, and the people are happy with drilling. Property values have gone up, not down, although some would have you believe otherwise. It's been said that the United States is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. So let's make America the land of opportunity and power as it once was, instead of being on the brink of financial ruin as it is today. I urge you to pass the regulations. Drill here and drill now.
How much will you pay?
Mike White. Can we please remember to be respectful of everyone's opinion in this room, please? Mike White. Is Mike White here? Herserto Rodriguez?
Hello, my name is Heriberto Rodriguez, and I'm from the town of Butter in Otsego County. And I'm here with to ask for the SGEIS and the regulations to be withdrawn. My main concern is the health issues. I have here from Theo Colburn. She works for the Endocrine Disruption Exchange, and she has a whole peer review that was submitted to the International Journal of Human Ecology and Risk Assessment. And I wonder if the DEC, or who was making the regulations, or who was making the regulations, would have a copy of this, because you wouldn't have to do anything. It's all here. And one of the things that it is in here is, which I think is very important, and people talk about making drilling responsible. It's, she recommends that an isotopic fingerprints of chlorinated compounds in the products used to drill and frack, each manufacturer would have its own fingerprint. A plot of this isotope data found down gradient or hydraulically fractured well would aid a state or federal regulator in identifying the contamination source, which the state would be you, the DEC, and the federal would be the EPA. And I hope the EPA study doesn't become political and something we also have to challenge again, and that'll probably be coming out soon. Well, that's my concern, and I just want to mention about the people that are suffering in Pennsylvania. There are people suffering in Pennsylvania. This is, I mean, they've signed non-disclosure agreements. This is done in 31 states. Let's make New York the first state to ban this and go on the record to show that we could be better and help these other states who are really being destroyed by this, and we'll have plenty of wealth with our water, air, and all our natural resources, and it will be so rich, we'll be the envy of all the states that are toxically polluted. And we should also stop this so we can help the destruction and the suffering that these people are going through. Renewable energy is the way to go, and that's the way we should proceed. Solar farms, solar winds, anything that doesn't pollute and enriches our environment and our lives. Thank you.
Kalika Stern. Let's see, how do we do this? Hi, I'm from South Fallsburg. Several years ago, I went to the first meeting of frackers in Rock Hill. It was very impressive. They had nice coffee and cookies. And they also told us that the fracking fluid that they used was very similar to dishwater detergent. Now we know that isn't quite true. So many people have spoken that I don't need to repeat it. I only want to remind you of the sign. They said that fracking was safe in the Gulf, and all the other things that have been happening because of these environmental problems. Remember the pictures of the tsunamis and the floods from Irene? These all will be problems if they come again, and they will, when fracking comes. All these major disasters will only be worse. So I want to remind you that the water for 17 million people is at risk, and that's why we have to ban fracking. Thank you. That was our last speaker for the afternoon session. We're going to take a brief adjournment and we'll resume the hearing at 6 p.m. Thank you for coming.